Donald Trump promised a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and many times those things were contradictory to one another. But one of his main promises was that he was going to lower prices for Americans. People were obviously feeling a bit hurt after the COVID-19 pandemic, and inflation was very unpleasant for everybody. So one of the main things that people were counting on was for Donald Trump to lower prices. And now it looks like he is trying to follow through on some of his other promises, which would raise prices on his very first day. But first, if you end up getting anything out of this video, please do remember to hit that subscribe button. I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. Now, I think we should probably start off with a couple of base facts that everybody should probably know. The economy right now is the envy of the world. By all economic indicators, the United States economy is doing very well. That doesn't mean that inflation didn't happen. That doesn't mean that things aren't more expensive today than they were before the pandemic. But it just means that by all metrics that we normally use, the United States is doing pretty damn well. And so if Trump were smart, he would just kind of coast this thing out. He would take over Biden's roaring economy, and he would do nothing. But because Donald Trump is a petulant child who has to feel strong and has to feel like he's getting one over on somebody, he's going to start trying to follow through with some of the promises that he made during his campaign. One of those main promises was imposing tariffs. And he tweeted just the other day, on January 20th, as one of my my first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long-simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power, and until such time that they do, it is time for them to pay a very big price. Now, I'm of two minds on this. I think Donald Trump wants to implement these tariffs because it is something that he promised to do, and it makes him feel strong. It makes him feel like he's going to be in control of these different negotiating partners. He might go ahead and go through with it. But on the other hand, he could very well just be trying to rock the economy now, because our economy is so strong now, Donald Trump is going to have a hard time making the economy get even stronger if it doesn't go down a little bit before he comes into office. Now, that is not something that I would bet on. That is not something that I would count on. I think we should all count on Donald Trump trying to follow through with these promises and implementing a 25% tariff on all of the goods from our biggest trading partners. And I cannot stress that enough. Canada and Mexico, our neighboring countries, are our biggest trading partners. They are our friends. And Donald Trump wants to go to war with them on the trade front. This is a terrible, terrible idea. It is going to raise prices for American people, and it is going to inflame tensions with our allies. This absolutely makes no sense. But because Donald Trump is such a small man and has to feel strong by doing these types of brute force moves, I think this is what we can expect in a second Trump administration. And if you need to better understand how these tariffs are going to impact the American people, let's go ahead and listen to Catherine Rampell from CNN. She lays it out quite nicely.
I mean, it is not unexpected in a sense. It may be unexpected to Americans who thought Trump was going to lower their prices. Because if you voted for Trump because you thought he was going to bring grocery prices down, I have some very bad news for you. A lot of our produce comes from Mexico. 2/3 of the tomatoes that Americans purchase are from Mexico. 90% of the avocados that they purchase are from Mexico, just to mention two examples. So that guac is definitely going to cost extra. If you voted for Trump because you thought he was going to bring down the cost of housing, a lot of our lumber, cement, other materials comes from Canada, which means that construction costs are going to go up. Not to mention all of the ways he's going to roil the U.S. auto industry, because a lot of autos cross borders in North America multiple times before they're ultimately finished and sold to consumers. Not to mention the fact that a lot of U.S. manufacturers purchase inputs, intermediate goods like metals and cement and other things from Canada, from Mexico, and not to mention even the retaliation that we should expect. All of which is going to be very bad for consumers, not to mention, again, many of the U.S. workers that Trump allegedly wants to help.
She is exactly correct. And to boil it down, it is going to affect every single aspect of our economy. All of the goods that come into our country, all of the goods that you go out and purchase at the store, they are going to be much more expensive. And I cannot stress this enough. These are our allies. These are our friends. And Donald Trump is trying to go to war with our friends. He is a petulant child who doesn't know how to govern. He doesn't think about the United States citizens. He doesn't think about you or me. He doesn't think about anybody but Donald Trump. And because he needs to feel like a big bad bully that pushes other countries around, this is the type of stuff we're going to expect. And to add on to that, his request for Mexico and Canada to stop the illegal immigration problem and stop the fentanyl problem is an insane proposition. You're going to impose these wide-scale tariffs of 25% at least because Mexico is supposed to take care of our southern border. Mexico is supposed to stop American citizens bringing in fentanyl into the country. None of this has been thought through. Donald Trump just wants to feel like a big, bad, tough guy, and he's going to hurt the American people because he has such a fragile ego. I mean, it is really quite pathetic. And Mexico is obviously paying attention to these things, and their new president responded quite quickly. Let's go ahead and take a look at what she had to say.
Quote, President Trump, neither threats nor tariffs will solve the issue of migration or drug consumption in the United States. Cooperation and shared understandings are required to face these important challenges. Imposing one tariff would mean another comes in response. I'm going to read that one more time because these are very important words from Mexico's president. Imposing one tariff would mean another comes in response, continuing like this until we put shared companies at risk.
And she is exactly correct. If we think that Canada and Mexico are just going to stand by and let Trump try to bully them around, you've got another thing coming, because they will impose retaliatory tariffs, which means the things that we export are going to decrease as well because now other countries are having to pay more to import it. Nobody wins a trade war. And I don't know how many times Donald Trump has heard this. I'm sure he has smart people around him that have told him time and time and time again, but he just doesn't listen because it's not about you or me or the American people. It's not about what is best for this country. It is about what is best for Donald Trump. And maybe he tipped off a few of his buddies that are going to capitalize off these tariff moves. But overall, it is going to hurt the American people. And to try to put our problems on Mexico and Canada is just a childish way to go about things. After all, 99% of the fentanyl that comes into this country is trafficked by American citizens. We are the ones that are consuming these drugs. We are the ones that are creating the demand for these jobs. So to try to say that that is Mexico's problem is really quite baffling to me. And we even had the Premier of Ontario, somebody who is a Trump supporter, or at least he used to be a Trump supporter, This guy was celebrating when Trump got elected, but he's kind of changing his tune now that Donald Trump is threatening these 25% tariffs across the board. Let's see what he had to say.
What I found unfair about the comments is to compare us to Mexico. And I can tell you, Canada is no Mexico. We do approximately, just Ontario alone, $500 billion of two-way trade. I found his comments unfair. I found him insulting. It's like a family member stabbing you right in the heart. I spent a lot of time in the US, and I have yet to talk to one American that has any issue with Canadians.
And they have every right to feel that way. Because, like I said before, these people are our friends. These are our biggest trading partners. These are mutually beneficial relationships, whether you're talking about Canada or Mexico. So for Donald Trump to just use this brute force object to try to bully them around, it's just a terrible idea. And this isn't the way that we should be treating our friends. Not to mention, when Donald Trump was in his first term, he passed the new USMCA, the U.S.-Canada-Mexico Agreement, whatever it was called. And he said at that time that it was the greatest deal of all time. This is great for everybody. And now he wants to impose these tariffs, which would overtly break that agreement. So this isn't about what is doing best for the country. This isn't what is doing... It's not about doing what is best for the American people or American companies. It is about doing what makes Donald Trump feel good. He feels like a big, bad, tough guy if he can bully people around like this. And it's the American people that are going to suffer because he has to fulfill this narcissism. It is absolutely insane to me. And I'm really getting sick of people that might be MAGA light or overtly supporting MAGA, trying to run excuses for Donald Trump, because this is what you guys voted for. This is what MAGA voted for. Donald Trump wasn't shy about what he was going to do with across-the-board tariffs. So you guys just need to own it. But instead we hear stuff like this trying to, make excuses for Donald Trump.
I would point out that Mexico did violate the Mexico-Canada trade agreement earlier this year when they enacted AMLO's judicial reforms. So technically, Trump could say this is in retaliation for that. What he did say is every time Trump rattles the saber, and he's been calling for tariffs on just about everything since the 1980s, he always gives the other country an out. He always says, this is what I want to see. I want to see fentanyl response from China. I want to see closing the borders. I want to see immigration. And we went through a lot of this in the first term. And Trump would always say, we're going to have the biggest, the most terrible tariffs you've ever seen. We're going to tariff the hell out of you. And inevitably, there'd be some sort of, everyone would panic, and then there'd be some sort of sense of, okay, can we get a fig leaf? Can we get some sort of policy change that Trump can point to and say, this is a win? USMCA was not dramatically different from NAFTA, but Trump acted like he had completely reinvented it and finally gotten Americans this much better deal. I'd be surprised if we actually enact these tariffs and prices go up everywhere, then everybody in the administration is going to see, okay, how can we get out of this while looking like we've got some sort of victory?
Yeah.
Any move by these foreign governments is going to be seen as, okay, that's our out.
Just think about what he is saying here. Well, this is what Trump did in the first term, and what we had to do then was we looked for these little fig leaves that we could hold up like a nice and shiny object for Donald Trump so we could make it look like he got a big win. I mean, how pathetic is somebody like Donald Trump? This is just petulant child behavior. And he's treating our friends poorly. They are going to retaliate against us, and it is going to be even worse for the American consumer. In no way is a trade war with our biggest trading partners a good thing. Nobody wins a trade war. So it's really getting tiresome to hear people like this run this defense for Trump like, oh, well, he's just doing this as a negotiating tactic. And Donald Trump isn't a good negotiator. He is a terrible negotiator. He tries to bully people around, and he's probably not that interested in negotiating at all. How many times before the election did he say, China and Mexico, they don't want to negotiate, so this is what we have to do? He is not serious about negotiating. He just wants to make himself look like a strong man on the world stage. And he's going to hurt Americans in the meantime. So, America needs to buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy 4 years. We're not even to Inauguration Day yet. And things are just wild and crazy. So, everybody needs to buckle up. We should prepare for these tariffs. Even if they do not come to fruition, which would be good, it's not something that I'm going to count on. Because I know that Donald Trump is a malignant narcissist that has to fulfill this hole he has in his ego at all given times. And so I expect things like this to go down in a second Trump administration. These are the same types of things that he tried to do in his first administration, and he failed miserably at it. So I will leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to hit that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. I am trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I am like this close. So if you could support independent media and give me a subscribe, I would very much appreciate it. If you want to see just how inept Donald Trump is when he's talking about his very own policies, tariffs, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.